Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We are talking next about a story that came out of the Sun Sentinel in Florida entitled Where There Is Cigarette Smoke in a Condo, There Is Fire. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to stop right before you read that story, Tony, and just remind our listeners here in the second hour, we've got a great offer from the Community Associations Institute. Uh-huh. They are offering one free membership to their organization, and it's a great organization. Folks, just the literature that you'll get alone, the magazine, and the other resources you have available to you online is worth its weight if you were to pay for the membership, but it's free. And here's how it's free. The first person who calls the Where You Live hotline, and that number is 952-224-2668, gives us their name, address, phone number, name of their homeowner association, indicate that you're a member of that board, and you will get that membership free.
And I want to detail a little bit more about the Community Associations Institute. It's a professional organization that supports homeowner associations, the boards of directors, and the members, correct?
Yep.
Educates and supports. So it's great information, and it's a great institution to be involved with.
Our very first story, the voice of reason, the president of CAI.
That's right, in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Right.
He was the one that stepped in with a $50 check, wasn't he?
That's right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, here's our next story. Where there is cigarette smoke in a condo, there's fire. The dateline is September 8th, 2011, the Sun Sentinel in Florida. A student at Nova Southeastern School of Law wrote an excellent article that was published in the American Bar Association's Probate and Property magazine. The article was entitled Butt Out, that's B-U-T-T, Out, Controlling Environmental Tobacco Smoke in Condominiums. It discussed the smoking regulations throughout the country and how community associations are dealing with complaints regarding secondhand smoke. A Florida trial court issued an injunction prohibiting a unit owner from smoking within their unit a few years ago. The court agreed that the extent of secondhand smoke seeping into the neighboring unit was so pervasive that it was a nuisance and an unreasonable source of annoyance to the complaining unit owner. The question is, did the court go too far? To what extent can an association regulate lawful activities of unit owners within their own units or limited common elements? Many boards and attorneys alike have questioned whether an association could prohibit smoking altogether, not just on the common elements and the association property, but also stop people from smoking within their individual unit. A district court in Colorado answered this question in the affirmative. Colorado law, similar to that of Florida, generally holds that covenants as private contractual agreements are enforceable when the association's exercise of power is reasonable, made in good faith, and not arbitrary or capricious. The unit owners of the Heritage Hills Condominium Owners Association voted to amend their declaration of condominium to ban smoking within the boundaries of the entire community. Smokers objected, claiming they couldn't use their property the way they intended to use it. They were smokers when they bought and or moved into the condo, and now the association is telling them they can't smoke. The court acknowledged that the ban against smoking was not in place when the declaration was originally written. However, the court noted that anyone who buys a unit in a common interest development with knowledge of its owner's association's discretionary power accepts the risk that that power may be used in a way that benefits the commonality but harms the individual. Mm-hmm. So interesting issues.
Yes, it is. I think it's important to note here that I think there's two things at play, and one is does the association have the right? But the second thing is, just because you have the right, should you take that authority
use it
and use it?
Yeah, good. That's a very good point.
In many homeowner associations, when you're talking about something so volatile of an issue, whether it's smoking in units, and that clearly will be a volatile issue with us for years. Those other ones are pet ownership, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Rentals
within
an association.
Yep.
These types of things. It is clear that a lot of times when there's such a major change, the board of directors, as well as the other homeowners, even though they are making up a majority, wish to make a major change and swing what their governing documents state. And they go through the process, and this association, Heritage Hills, did that, didn't they?
They did.
Yep. They did it the proper way. A lot of times people will put in something that will allow what's called a grandfather clause.
Yeah.
Allowing that, okay, we're going to acknowledge that other people bought without knowing this, and so we're going to at least give them the benefit and say, you know what, you bought here with this, with these provisos, and we're going to make sure they stay in place. However, once you moved, that is something that we're affording you, but nobody else.
Sure, or put a deadline on it, put a sunset on it. You know what? We'll grandfather you in for 3 years, or for 5 years, or for 1 year, whatever they think is reasonable. But then you have to sell and move, or quit smoking, or whatever you need to do in order to stay.
Yeah. Now, while I think that that's a good way of handling it for people, because you're dealing usually with a very sensitive issue or matter, I guess my feeling, of course, is they don't have to do that.
The association doesn't have to do that. There's nothing in the documents that say you have to grandfather in old rules. And
I liked what the court stated in Colorado, how they phrase that. They said anyone who buys a unit in a common interest development with the knowledge of its owner association's discretionary power accepts the risk that that power may be used in a way that benefits the commonality, but not necessarily helps the individual.
That's right. That's it in a nutshell. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and I appreciate that so much. That is so well stated.
Yeah.
I wish, on the other hand, as it pertains to areas of smoking, that same type of thinking would also apply in our municipalities and in our states, with allowing a individual proprietor of a business to allow that to happen, because you can. I think the big reason they've wanted to ban smoking in bars and restaurants, for example, is because of a saying that the person working there has a right to not be exposed to secondhand smoke, and I understand that, but I think I would probably be more leaning towards the idea that they don't have a right to that job; they have an opportunity to that. If they don't like that, they don't have to work there and find something else. For example, to me, that would be like saying I'm going to work at FedEx, but I don't want to lift anything
because that might harm my back.
Yeah, and so I don't want to be exposed to that. Well, then I'm not going to work at FedEx. And so I wish there would be more liberty with people allowing the individuals to choose, because then and this is something that we've always talked about, and that the marketplace will speak.
There you go. That's right. You'll learn what your customers want.
Yeah.
And that's what you're going to deliver, because it's a matter of your pocketbook.
And that's what I like so much. And so if a homeowner association says we want to band together and we want to say no smoking anywhere in the building, that's fine. If the majority do that, go through the process of doing it, that's fine. Then they're going to find that they may down the road be limiting the number of people that are potential buyers, but that's okay.
Yep.
That's a decision that they made, and they have the right to make that decision.
Yeah. And you made the point earlier that just because they have a right to change their declaration doesn't mean that they have to change it, or that they have to change it so rigidly. They can allow for grandfathering in, or they can allow for some kind of sunset deadline on the current declaration and covenant.
Don't you think that generally in most cases it's good to kind of look at something with a grandfather provision?
I think so. The smoking is such a hot issue because of health risks and health risks to innocent people, innocent victims. But that I'm not quite so sure. But certainly with things like pets and rentals and that kind of thing, where you're not really going to harm anyone by grandfathering in the existing situation for a while, I don't think. So anyway, if anyone here listening today is interested in exploring adopting a smoke-free policy, there's a great publication from the Live Smoke-Free organization. Their phone number is 651-646-3005, and it was written for apartment managers, but also applies to any kind of multifamily housing situation, including a condominium. It tells you what some of the issues are. It tells you why smoking is harmful. It tells you how it's harming your property and possibly harming your market, and then gives you some ideas about how to transition this, not just, cut and dried. Apartment managers don't want to just bring down the axe and stop this because they don't want to lose renters. So they're looking at ways of transitioning and slowly changing to a smoke-free policy. And this booklet's good information.
Okay. Well, let's take a break. We have one last segment in today's show. Let's talk about the association's reserves. What is the economy doing? The low interest rates that we're seeing, how is that affecting the money you're trying to stockpile to put away for future improvements? We'll be back after these messages.